Imagine you are so desperate, like literally so desperate to be a movie star that you are jumping up and down, doing flying splits in the background of someone else's movie, just, begging for the camera's attention.
Right.
Now, I want you to imagine that that same starving extra eventually becomes this massive global icon who genuinely believes humans communicate via dolphin waves and that he can physically feel the molecular weight of the wind.
It is, it is the absolute definition of a Hollywood enigma. You have this indestructible action hero on one side, and then, this deeply surreal avant-garde philosopher on the other.
Yeah, totally. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are opening up a massive, completely wild stack of interview transcripts today. We've got everything from career retrospectives on his classic 90s action films to some highly existential, honestly, incredibly abstract appearances on French television.
Oh, yeah, those are wild.
Our mission today is to unravel the surprisingly complex mind of Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I promise you, even if you couldn't care less about martial arts or action movies, this is a fascinating study in just sheer willpower.
Absolutely.
We are looking at the intense drive, the highly unconventional wisdom, and really the raw vulnerability required to manufacture yourself into a global superstar. So if you think this guy is just a simple brawler who does the splits, prepare to have your mind entirely bent by a man who compares global politics to microbes.
Yeah, and to really understand how his mind works today, we have to start at the absolute bottom, because the surreal philosophy, that comes much later.
Right.
The beginning of his story is rooted in this raw, almost frightening level of desperation. Before you can afford to be a philosopher in Hollywood, you have to survive it.
And his early ambitions weren't even rooted in the whole martial arts action hero archetype, which I found so surprising.
Yeah, not at all.
He actually wanted to do comedy.
Right.
He talks in these transcripts about standing in front of a mirror, making faces, trying to emulate people like Jerry Lewis and Jean-Paul Belmondo. He literally saw himself as a physical comedian against entirely impossible odds.
And those odds were genuinely brutal. When he came to America from Belgium, he had practically nothing. Like, the sources detail him living on the street, sleeping in cars, and these rented garages.
Yeah.
He even admits to stealing food from grocery stores just to survive, because he was literally starving. But beneath that starvation, he possessed this intense, unyielding hunger for the movies.
Which leads to one of the most incredible visual anecdotes in these sources. So he manages to get cast as a background extra in a canon film. Now, usually extras are specifically told to blend in, right? Like, do not pull focus from the start.
Exactly. You're basically human furniture.
Right. But Van Damme is starving, and he wants to be a star. So while the main action is happening in the foreground, he and a friend are literally jumping as high as possible into the air, doing flying splits in the background of the shot.
Which, ironically but completely predictably, got him completely cut from the film because it was so distracting. But, it really reveals a fundamental aspect of his psychology at the time.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and doing a jump split in the background of a movie where you're just an extra, that is the physical equivalent of modern clickbait.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
He was doing whatever it took to steal the algorithm's attention before algorithms even existed.
That is exactly it.
Yeah.
He was a walking clickbait thumbnail. He understood intrinsically that attention, even negative or distracting attention, is the absolute currency of Hollywood.
Right.
He had this internal mechanism he calls his intuition voice. He recognized when a door was closing and knew exactly how to wedge his foot in it, no matter how ridiculous he looked doing it.
Okay, I have to stop you and push back a little here, though.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't buy that this was some masterclass in Hollywood strategy. When you are sleeping in a car and stealing food to survive, you weren't playing 4D chess. You were just throwing things at the wall. So I guess my question is, was this behavior genuinely a calculated understanding of the Hollywood machine, or just the sheer unhinged desperation of a starving guy?
Well, hear me out, because I actually think he was an absolute mastermind from day one, even if it was instinctual rather than, academic.
Okay.
Look at the exact sequence of events that got him his breakout role in Bloodsport. He goes into a producer's office. He knows the studio system is a fortress, right? He knows this is his absolute last shot before he's entirely out of money.
Right.
So he doesn't just hand over a headshot. He walks around the producer's desk and literally begs for a part, playing perfectly on the man's empathy.
And it somehow worked. I mean, the producer felt genuinely sad seeing him in that state, essentially handed him the movie out of pity, and it opened on just a handful of screens in Los Angeles.
Yeah, a tiny release.
But it ended up making $9,000 per screen, which was a massive number at the time. They expanded the release, and he became an overnight sensation.
But the desperation didn't just vanish when he got famous. That street fighter survival instinct, it just mutated into an intense, hyperprotective drive over his own career.
Which brings us to the famous papaya incident.
Oh man, let's trace the psychology of this because it's actually brilliant.
Okay, so cut to the filming of Double Impact. Van Damme is now the star. A producer comes to the set, and the rumor circulating is that this producer is trying to pull funds from Double Impact to save his other movie, Stone Cold, which is losing money.
Right.
So Van Damme is so furious, so fiercely protective of his territory, that he grabs a papaya, just a random tropical fruit lying around on craft services, throws it at the wall where it completely smashes, and then aggressively chases this high-level producer all the way to the airport.
I mean, it sounds completely unhinged to a corporate executive,
No.
but to a guy who used to steal food. He views the industry not as a corporate ladder, but as a literal street fight.
Wow, yeah.
You use whatever weapon is available, a flying split, a plea for pity, or, a piece of tropical fruit. And the crazy part,
Yeah.
the producer fled, the budget stayed intact, and the film went on to make $40 million in a few weeks.
That is wild. So he hustles his way to the top. He achieves the fame, the money, the impossible dream. But here's where the transcripts get really interesting. If that desperate, primal survival instinct is what built him, how does that kind of mind process the world once the fight for survival is over?
It gets weird.
Because he does not process reality like the rest of us.
Not at all. Once he attains power, he fundamentally rejects traditional structures of knowledge. Like, he points out that he left school quite young, and as a result, he relies entirely on his own internal instincts.
Right.
He has this theory that when you follow books and establish rules too closely, you lose your raw animal instinct. In fact, he claims to have only really read 2 books in his entire life.
Wait, really? Only 2?
Yep, Jack London's White Fang and Henri Charrier's Papillon.
Oh, wow. But think about what those 2 books are. White Fang is about a wild wolf dog surviving this brutal, unforgiving environment of the Klondike. And Papillon is about a man enduring and escaping a horrific, inescapable penal colony. Those are the ultimate tales of survival. It perfectly mirrors his own self-mythology.
Precisely. He curates his reality. His rejection of the conventional goes so deep that he claims he doesn't even read scripts. He says the script follows him.
Of course he does.
But where it gets truly surreal is his view on mathematics. He states very clearly that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 11. And he views the number 7 as a literal miracle.
Wait. 1 + 1 is 11? How does he even arrive at that?
Okay, so think about it from his perspective. If you build an empire out of thin air, standard math doesn't apply to you. You've already broken the laws of probability.
Oh, I see.
Going from a starving guy in a garage to a global icon doesn't equal 2, it equals a phenomenon. He is attempting to assign mystical significance to a world he feels he conquered through sheer physical force. To him, reality is clearly malleable, so why shouldn't math be?
That malleable reality extends to how he views global news, too. And honestly, this part blew my mind.
Microbes, right?
Yes. When interviewers ask him about world affairs or global crises, he admits he ignores politics and the news entirely. He describes all of these massive, terrifying global problems as microbes. To him, they are just tiny, natural parts of life that will eventually resolve themselves, much like a child growing up and getting over a bad grade or a breakup.
How do you interpret that microbe concept?
Yeah.
Because it sounds incredibly naive on the surface, but there's a deep psychology there.
Well, to me, viewing global crises as microbes is like an extreme, almost enlightened form of a modern digital detox. I mean, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the 24-hour news cycle, you know how paralyzing it can be.
Oh, absolutely.
But he has completely insulated himself by forcing his brain to view massive, complex societal issues as microscopic, self-resolving organisms. He fiercely protects his own mental peace.
That's a really brilliant way to frame it. It is an ego-protective mechanism. He refuses to be afraid of things outside his physical control. He isn't afraid of the economy crashing or global war. He actually says fighting is just a part of human nature. He thinks humans do bad things, but they also do more good things, which is why we still love ourselves as a species. However, he does have genuine fears that plague him.
Right, the overpopulation and food shortage fear.
Yes. He is absolutely terrified of the growing human population, fearing that eventually the math will catch up with us and there will be no fish, no meat, no food left to sustain billions of people.
And his highly specific solution to this impending doom, he aggressively advises people to eat only rice.
It's such a visceral survivalist response.
It really is. And if you're listening to this right now and thinking, man, this guy has completely lost touch with reality, you aren't alone. It sounds bizarre, but you have to understand that his worldview is deeply, literally connected to the physical elements of the earth.
Oh, definitely.
Which brings me to the story about the beach in Belgium, where I really need you to explain this to me like I'm 5.
Okay, let's do it.
He tells a story about walking on the beach in the pouring rain. The sea is raging, and he has to lean forward, putting his hands in his pockets just to push through the wind. But he doesn't describe it as a windy day. He says he felt the wind pushing the actual molecular mass of the elements against him, and he was physically battling that molecular mass. Like, is he just being poetic, or does he genuinely believe he is interacting with physics on a subatomic level?
He genuinely believes he is feeling the physics.
Yes.
This isn't poetry to him, it's literal. He is hypersensitive to energy and matter because his entire life has been based on his physical body moving through space.
Right, the physical comedian, the martial artist.
Exactly. He views himself not just as an actor, but as a collection of molecules interacting with the universe. And this subatomic perspective completely informs how he views human connection. Like, he genuinely believes that humans communicate through invisible waves, much like whales and dolphins do in the ocean.
Dolphin waves.
Yes, dolphin waves. He points out that marine mammals can't speak words underwater, so they use waves of energy and sonar. He believes humans operate on that exact same invisible frequency. We just forgot how to tune into it because of modern society.
It's like he's operating on an entirely different dimensional frequency than the rest of Hollywood. But that creates a massive contradiction to me.
What do you mean?
If he genuinely believes he can sense invisible energy waves between people, how does a guy with that mindset actually navigate the incredibly rigid, contract-driven, money-obsessed corporate system of Hollywood?
Well, he navigates it by taking those bizarre instincts and weaponizing them into marketing brilliance.
Yeah.
And if you can sense energy, you can manipulate energy.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, no one understood image and spectacle better than he did.
Which brings us perfectly to the Cannes Film Festival stunt. This is legendary.
Oh, I love this story.
So, he and Dolph Lundgren are at Cannes. They have no movie to promote together. They have no actual reason to be the center of attention. And the transcripts note they felt a bit inferior surrounded by all these prestigious filmmakers. So Van Damme orchestrates a totally fake physical altercation on the red carpet. They purposely bump shoulders, glare at each other, security gets involved, and they create this massive scene.
And it worked flawlessly. The press ate it up. It generated massive global publicity for a movie project that literally didn't even exist yet.
So if he can just manufacture press out of thin air like that, does his lasting success actually come from his martial arts and acting, or is he fundamentally just a brilliant, instinctual marketer who intrinsically understands the public's psychology?
I would argue the latter is his true superpower. He understood very early on that the public doesn't just want a martial artist who can kick high, they want a myth. They want larger-than-life conflict.
Right, the spectacle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He cultivated that myth by constantly observing the power dynamics and the media around him. Look at his takeaway from his cameo on the TV show Friends.
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. He gets booked to guest star on one of the biggest sitcoms of all time, but he admits he has absolutely no idea what the show is.
None.
He doesn't know who Jennifer Aniston is. He doesn't know Courtney Cox. But what he takes away from that experience isn't about the comedy or the acting. He walks away with an absolute awe at the unrivaled power of television. He realizes that a 30-minute TV show piped directly into people's living rooms can generate more global conversation than a massive theater blockbuster.
Yep. He is a constant, quiet observer of charisma and influence. He talks about working with Dennis Rodman, noting how Rodman would have women painting his nails in his trailer, cultivating this chaotic, magnetic aura.
Fascinating.
And he observed Mickey Rourke, noting that Rourke possessed this enduring, heavy charisma even when the cameras stopped rolling. Van Damme absorbed all of this. He recognized that being unforgettable and eccentric is far more valuable in Hollywood than being traditionally talented.
And he didn't just analyze actors either. He had a remarkably sharp tactical eye for directorial talent. I mean, he was instrumental in bringing major Asian action cinema directors to Hollywood, and the way he breaks them down in the sources proves how deeply he understood cinematic frameworks.
This is the part that proves he wasn't just a meathead action star. Break down how he categorized them for us.
Yeah, he perfectly segments them. He calls Ringo Lam the Martin Scorsese of Asia because Lam focused on these gritty, realistic underworld dramas. He calls John Woo the commercial Hollywood equivalent, understanding Woo's highly stylized balletic action was perfectly viable for Western blockbusters.
So accurate.
Right. And then he calls Tsui Hark the George Lucas of fantasy because Hark constantly shifted his directorial point of view and built massive imaginative worlds. He isn't just hiring stunt guys, he is deeply analyzing the visual auteurs who can elevate his own legacy.
It's incredibly tactical. But, as time passes, the industry shifts, the adrenaline naturally fades, and in the later interviews, we start to see a very different, deeply vulnerable side of him. We move from the invincible tactician to an older man searching for ultimate meaning.
He's very candid about his regrets, actually. He admits in these interviews that he lost about 4 to 5 years of his life because he surrounded himself with the wrong people.
Yeah, the Hollywood track.
He says he lost a lot of his vital energy during that period, but what's fascinating is that the real crisis for him wasn't the failure or the bad times. His ultimate crisis was the paradox of success.
This is a classic, honestly devastating psychological trap for high achievers.
Exactly. Think about your own life and goals for a second. Van Damme achieved his impossible childhood dream. He got the massive muscles, he made millions of dollars, he traveled the world, he put his family and friends in a financially secure place, he even adopted all the stray dogs he wanted, he did it all.
Everything he set out to do.
And his reward for achieving literally everything he ever wanted, he was intensely, painfully bored. He literally says in French, "Je m'emmerde, I am bored to death."
Because when your entire identity, your entire cellular makeup, is built on climbing an impossible mountain, reaching the summit can feel like a death sentence. There is nowhere left to climb. The survival instinct has nothing to fight.
So what does he do to cure this boredom? At 50 years old, he decides he wants to return to the ring.
Oh, man.
Not for a movie, but for a real highly dangerous, unsanctioned fight against an actual Olympic gold medalist in boxing, Samlak Kamsing. He doesn't just want an exhibition to look good, he genuinely wants to win.
And he is fully aware that people will call him crazy. He notes that the public will say, he's a spiritual weirdo, he has a successful vintage business, he has a family. Why is he doing this?
Right.
But he feels an overwhelming compulsion to do it, just to prove to himself that he's still alive, to reconnect with that starving kid doing flying splits in the background.
I look at this desire to fight an Olympian at 50, and it really reminds me of a modern tech billionaire trying to build a rocket to Mars.
Okay, how so?
Well, once you've conquered your initial impossible dream and you have all the money you could ever spend, the comfort becomes suffocating. You are literally forced to invent a terrifying, life-threatening new challenge, whether it's going to space or getting punched in the face by a gold medalist, just to feel something real again.
That's a very apt comparison.
Yeah.
It is the desperate search for stakes. When the financial and social stakes are completely gone, you have to risk your actual physical self. But what's funny is that he's also acutely, somewhat vainly aware of the aging process itself.
Yes. The advice he gives on turning 50 is incredible. When an interviewer asks him for his wisdom on hitting half a century, his response is just so perfectly Van Damme. He doesn't give a philosophical quote about inner peace.
Not at all.
He says very specifically that the secret is to wear a very good skin and to make sure you wear a well-tailored, neutral-colored suit to look sharp.
It perfectly encapsulates the duality of the man. I mean, on one hand, he's talking about molecular energy, fighting the elements, and communicating via dolphin waves, and on the other, he's telling you to moisturize and buy a beige suit.
So good.
He never fully abandons the physical, superficial shell of the movie star, even as he dives incredibly deep into existentialism.
But his core realization in these later years is actually quite beautiful and grounded. He says he's no longer interested in just making a movie for a paycheck or just because the script is structurally good. He says the only real reason to live is to create. He wants to deliver a message with his remaining time.
And that uncompromising urge to create is what ultimately defines his legacy. What this stack of transcripts reveals is the ultimate proof that you do not need to fit into a neat, conventional box to succeed in life.
Absolutely.
Jean-Claude Van Damme succeeded not by smoothing out his rough edges to make executives comfortable, but by sharpening them. By trusting his bizarre instincts and refusing to filter his eccentricities, he carved out a space in the culture that literally only he could occupy.
So, what does this all mean for you? I want to leave you with a final provocative thought that builds on everything we've unpacked today. In these sources, Van Damme completely rejects traditional human stories of our origins.
Yeah, he does.
He claims he is, quote, too smart to believe the Adam and Eve story with the snake. Instead, he favors the idea that humanity is the product of cloning or some higher scientific creation. But more profoundly than that, he completely rejects how we measure our own lives. He doesn't view time in human hours or fleeting seconds. He compares our brief existence to the immense, compressed time of a brick or a stone, shaped by unimaginable pressure over geological eons.
It's a perspective that makes our daily anxieties, the emails, the traffic, the career ladders, seem incredibly microscopic.
Exactly. So think about that sturdy, predictable, conventional box that society expects you to fit into. If you woke up tomorrow and genuinely viewed your life the way he does, as a cloned electrical wave passing through deep geological time, how much more fearlessly would you pursue your wildest ambitions? Because maybe, just maybe, when you stop trying to fit into that box, you realize there was never a box at all. Just molecules, waves, and whatever reality you have the willpower to bend.